A system is a whole that cannot be divided into independent parts. For example, an automobile is a mechanical system, and its essential property is its ability to carry you from one place to another. But no part of it can do that. There's no part of an automobile, its motor, its body, its seats, that can carry you from one place to another. It's only the automobile taken as a whole. Your essential property is life. There's no part of you which separately lives. Life is a property of the whole. And therefore, when the whole is disassembled, it loses its essential properties, and so do all of its parts. If we were to bring an automobile into this room and disassemble it, but retain every part in the room, we would not have an automobile. What you have is a collection of the parts. Because the automobile is the product of the interaction of its parts, not the sum of the parts taken separately. Because when a system is operating as well as possible, none of its parts may be. Teaching is an obstruction to learning. Although being taught is an obstruction to learning, teaching is a marvelous way to learn. Expected answers cannot be creative because they're already known. We make an absolutely incredible assumption that the world is organized the way a university is. Now, what does that mean? Well, we say experience involves physical problems, chemical problems, psychological problems, social problems, economic problems, philosophical problems, religious problems, and so on. There are different kinds of problems. And so we organize around these different kinds of problems. We take reality apart into disciplines. And we think a discipline represents reality. There is no such thing as a physical problem, a chemical problem, a social problem, an economic problem. Those are absolute illusions. Those adjectives don't tell you a damn thing about a problem. They tell you something, but not about the problem. But we treat them as though they tell you something about the problem. We don't even tell students what the origin of disciplines is. One of the most exciting things I ever read is the first sentence of a book called On Human Communication by Colin Sherry, a British cybernetician and information theorist who spent 1976 on a sabbatical year at MIT and wrote this book. And the first sentence of the book reads as follows. The German philosopher Leibniz was probably the last living man who knew everything. What an exciting idea. So I went back to look into it. It was literally true. Leibniz spoke 12 languages. He made major contributions to mathematics and science as we knew it that day. The entire domain of science was capable of being contained in a single human brain. But after Leibniz, that became increasingly impossible as the domain of human knowledge enlarged. The first division that occurred at the time of Newton. Newton was not a professor of physics. Physics didn't exist when Newton was there. Newton was a professor of natural philosophy. Because the first division that occurred in the domain of human knowledge was between philosophy and natural philosophy. Now, they didn't have the guts to call the other part unnatural philosophy, which it was. And then natural philosophy divided into physics and chemistry. And as recently as 1900, there were only 6 sciences: physics, chemistry, biology, psychology, and sociology. 6 sciences. Currently on the register of the National Research Council are 450 disciplines. See, disciplines aren't a fact of nature. They represent a filing system for knowledge. They're exactly a filing system. You probably have a file in your office with multiple drawers, and one drawer reads A to C, and the next drawer D to F, and so on. There are ways of retaining information so you can get access to it easily. The fact that Armco Steel and Alcoholics Anonymous are in the same file don't mean a damn thing. It's just a convenient way of getting them. If you rearranged your file by date of receipt rather than alphabetically, you wouldn't change the content one bit. You just change your way of access to it. Now, all the disciplines are labels on files. They're nothing about the content of the files. That's an absolute illusion.